and somebody's dog just came in my apartment. If I was afraid of dogs, I would have been dead right there on the floor, just dead. So consider that, like, that's something to consider. Hey guys, and thank you so much for coming on back to my channel. Today I want to have a little bit of a candid conversation with you guys. I feel like this topic that I'm going to talk about is something that's extremely important, but sometimes not always talked about. For me, I learned the hard way and also through trial and error, but I also had people like my parents in my corner to also help me and teach me along the way. So today we are going to talk about some tips and tricks on how to get an apartment. So if this is something you're interested in, stay tuned. All right, you guys, so I want to put a disclaimer out there that I am not any type of expert. I'm not a leasing agent. I am not getting paid for this. I just want to pass along some things for you. Mind you, this is everything that is my opinion or has been an experience of mine. So take what you need and then leave the rest, okay? So don't come for me because I'm giving you the disclaimer now. I'm not an expert, this is just my personal experience. I also have notes because your girl can talk and I don't want this video to be super long. I want to make sure that we stay on task and that you guys get some really good nuggets. So let's get started. First of all, congratulations if you are in the market to look for housing or an apartment. This is strictly on housing in an apartment, not buying a home because I don't own a home, I live in an apartment. So this is just me going off of my experience. The first thing you want to do is think about your budget. Now, I know that millennials, I'm a millennial, so I'm not talking trash about my own generation, but also younger generations and like this social media age, people can try to tell you like you can come out here and ball on a budget. Well, not even on a budget, just ball. Like you can pull, like come into an apartment with zero money down, blah, 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 blah. Listen, don't let these people make you go broke. Get you a budget and understand how much apartment you can afford, because if not, are these people who are like talking yak in your ear going to be the ones paying your bills or paying your rent? So if you are, I'm 28, I moved out of my parents' apartment 3 months ago. I have no shame in saying that. Like I lived in college apartments when I was an undergrad because I lived 3 hours away from my parents. But once I moved to Tennessee, I lived with my parents for 6 years. Like I have no shame in saying that. Along the way, there were people, and they weren't mean or hateful about it, that were like, oh, you're still living with your parents, like when are you gonna move out? When my budget allows me to move out, I am in no rush. I'm not going broke for anyone. So don't let the noise or people talking get in your way or try to dissuade you or make you feel bad because you still live at home or you live wherever you live. Because when my apartment came up, like for me to be able to live here, all of my ducks were in a row. Like everything aligned perfectly. God blessed me. You know, there was a lot of things that went into me getting this apartment. So I had my budget. Get your budget. Figure out what your debt to income ratio is. Okay, for me, I work a salary job. I worked almost a full year before I got my apartment, a full-time salary job before I moved out. After the 6 years where I had already lived there. What is your debt to income ratio? How much apartment can you afford? If you aren't working a salary job, which is fine, how many days out of the month do you have to work to be able to afford just your rent? How many hours do you have to work just to afford your rent? We're not even talking about utilities and other bills, just your rent. If you have to work 20 days out of the month just to cover rent, then that might not be worth, if it's like an hourly job, that might not be worth you moving out just yet, because what if you get sick? What if you're a college student and it's finals week and you can't you know, go work an 8-hour shift because you need to study? What if there's a group project that you need to get done? What if something happens and you have to go out of town? Like, life happens. So you need to figure out how much apartment you can afford, just the apartment, just the rent. Then calculate utilities, amenities, and other bills. So first, get you a budget. I have a video on how I budgeted my money. Now, it's not, when I did my video, I hadn't moved out of my parents' house yet. So it does include my budget when I was living at home, but you have to calculate like, how much is your car payment? I don't have a car payment. How much are your student loans? I don't have any student loans. I pay my student loans off. If you're in school, like how much are books, how much is food, like how much gas, like you have to have a budget. There's no better feeling than having financial freedom. Do not let anybody make you feel bad because you still live at home. They're not in your pockets, they're not in your bank account. Let them talk. Now, like I said, people make comments. They weren't mean comments, but I was like, I took them with a grain of salt. When you know your own budget, when you know how much money or house or apartment you can afford, the rest of it is just people talking, and they're gonna talk. Make sure you're not living outside your means. That's very important because there's people out here who are balling who don't have the money to ball. Don't be that person, okay? Be cute, be financially stable, and make sure you can pay your bills. That's tip number one. Okay, tip number two is, let's say you found an apartment that you're really interested in, and you have your budget together and you understand, okay, how much rent you can afford, how much apartment you can afford. Let's talk about some of the hidden fees, okay? One, let's say you found multiple apartments. You have to pay an application fee unless there's some type of special going on where they waive the fee. You have to pay an application fee for every single apartment you put an application down for. My application fee was $50. Okay, now they were doing a special, which I didn't know until I went to sign my lease, where they waived my application fee and they waived my administration fee. But let's say you narrowed it down to 3 apartment complexes that you like. Maybe their application fee might be $75, maybe one might be $50, maybe one might be $100. That's money that you will never get back unless you get it back after you sign your lease. That's what happened for me. They waived the $175 because I had to pay it up front, but then they took it off of my next month's rent. So think about all of these places that you're looking at. Think about how much their application fee is, and then narrow it down more if you can, so that you're not paying hundreds and hundreds of dollars for no reason. Also, ask a bunch of questions. Prior to me signing my lease, like I asked them what utilities are included in my apartment. This apartment, there are no utilities or amenities included. I have to pay $25 a month for valet trash, non-negotiable. My parking, like I don't have to pay for parking. This is free parking, meaning there's no assigned spaces, but that's something for you to consider. If you have a lot of people who come over your house and you have assigned parking spots, where are they supposed to park? Do you need a decal to park in your apartment? My water is not included in my rent, but it's through my complex. So I don't go down to the water department to pay my water bill. It's included in my rent. That may or may not be a deal breaker for some people. I do not get free cable or internet. Also, my cable has to be through AT&T, and so does my internet. So you need to ask, is there a certain provider that you have to get services from? Because my apartment complex has a contract with AT&T. I think it's Xfinity. Is AT&T and Xfinity the same thing? I feel like they are, but they might not be. It's through Xfinity. So if you have Comcast or you have like a satellite, that's not gonna work. Like you have to get it through their provider. Also, my sewage is not included, like I said, or my trash. I have to pay $25 a month for my trash, non-negotiable. I might not ever use the valet service, the valet trash service, but I still pay for it. Let me think. My electricity, like I have to go down to the electricity, what's it called? Yeah, the electricity department, the electric department. When you have your amenities or your utilities turned on, you have to pay a fee to get it turned on. And depending on what your credit score is, like for me, they waived the fee because my credit score was like phenomenal, which I'm not bragging, I'm just being honest. Credit is very, very, very important. Nobody ever talks about credit. They say you need good credit, but they don't tell you how to get good credit. You need good credit, y'all. I pay for cash for everything. I don't have any credit cards. I have zero debt. Everything is paid for in cash. If I can't afford it, I don't buy it, but that's a whole nother story. But there is a fee to get your water or your electricity or whatever turned on. So because my credit was good, I didn't have to pay that fee, but I did have to pay a one-time fee. There was like some type of fee that I had to pay that was like $50, but it wasn't, it was like a connection fee or something like that. And I'm like, y'all are nickel and diming me. So it's important that you have at least 3 to 6 months of your income, of your rent or whatever, already saved up front, because there's going to be a ton of fees. Like, I got, let me see, what did they hit me with? Application fee, $50. Administration fee, $125. I had a $300 security deposit slash reservation fee. I feel like I did pay that, but there was another fee that they were going to hit me with, but because my credit was so good, I didn't have to pay that, but I think I did pay the security deposit. They also prorate your rent depending on when you sign, or when you sign your lease. You have to have that month prorated. So I basically signed the last 4 days of the month, but I still had to pay those last 4 days of the month of rent, even though I wasn't even in the apartment, because they prorated it. Plus, I had to have a full month's rent up front before I ever stepped foot into the apartment. So prior to me ever getting my keys to my apartment, I paid almost, I was a couple $100 short. Almost, no, I wasn't even a couple hundred. I was about $100 short, if that much, of paying 2 months rent before I ever even got my keys. Between all the fees, turning on my utilities, all of that. So don't think, okay, well, I have a month's rent saved up, I can just get into an apartment. No, you're gonna probably need double, and just as an extra cushion, triple that amount between all the hidden fees and stuff. Ask questions. It's very important that you ask questions. Don't just assume, because my apartment when I was an undergrad, one of them, it was a gas, like I lived in Ohio, so we didn't have electric heat, we had gas heat, but it was a 6-unit apartment and we all split the gas. So the gas, whatever the bill was divided 6 ways. So for some people who don't like hot houses, they still had to pay the gas bill. For other people who had their houses on 90 degrees, they had to pay. So you have to be aware of some of the ways that the bills are split and some of the ways that utilities and stuff are handled. Now, mind you, this is me just living by myself. I don't have a roommate. So if you have a roommate, this is something that you all will have to discuss, but it's just me in my apartment. You should also ask if there's any move-in specials or any promos going on. They had some promos going on the month that I signed my lease. And you also need to ask them, which I didn't know, this is something that I learned when I signed my lease. The days, each day, the rate of the apartment or the rent rate changes. So like it could fluctuate between like $50 and $100, which is crazy to me. Now mine only fluctuated 3 days. Like I went on a, what, $3, I think? $3, not 3 days. I went in on a Tuesday to look at the apartment, but I was like, I wanted to pray, and I love the apartment, the one that I'm in now, but I wanted to pray about it before I signed my lease and signed my life away. So I asked the leasing manager if I could sign on Thursday, and she was like, well, the rates are different each day. Like each day it might go up $5, might go down $20, might go up $50, might go down $10. So she's like, what day do you want to sign your lease? I'll tell you what the rate is, and I will hold it and give you the same. No, I'm not paying the same amount. I think I'm paying $3 more than what I would have paid if I had signed on Tuesday, but I signed on Thursday. I only paid $3 more, but she told me like about a week's worth of how much the rent would change or the rate would change. So if there's a rate that you are quoted, try to get them to lock, and you're comfortable with that quote, try to get them to lock you into that quote, or you know, tell them if they ask you what your budget is, don't ever be forthcoming. Give them like, oh, my budget is blah, 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 and make sure it's like $100 less than what your actual cap is. Because my cap, like I have a cap on how much I'm willing to pay each month, and that included my utilities and all of that. So when I told her how much my cap was, I told her, I was like, that's not my rent. I don't want to pay more than this amount of money, period, with rent and my utilities and all that. And so I did make that number. I'm well underneath that number, but be honest and play the game a little bit. Like life is about networking and negotiating. I'm a bargainista, y'all. I never want to pay full price for anything. So if you can get your apartment for cheaper, get it for cheaper and play the game, because they're not hurt. Like these apartment complexes are not hurt over $50. Like if you're paying $50 less than what your neighbor's paying, that's not going to break the bank for them. Go for what you know. Go for what's in your budget. It's also important that you think about your must-haves. What are your absolute must-haves in an apartment? For me, it was location, safety, and let me think, what else? Location, safety. Those are really my only two big ones. But you have to think about, like, what is the neighborhood that you're living in? Are there kids that live there? Are there certain people who are able to rent versus some who aren't? Now, mine do a background check. Not every apartment complex does a background check. That is something that you need to know. If there's a certain person that will or will not rent to, can you have these people as your neighbor? I know that apartment complexes are not supposed to discriminate, but let's be honest, there are certain individuals like sex offenders, people who have felonies, which I'm not judging, I'm just saying, like, apartment complexes will not rent to them if they cannot pass a background check. If your apartment does not do a background check, that's something to consider. Your neighbors might be people who you might not want to be your neighbors. I'm just being honest. Let's be honest here. My apartment is gated. That was very important to me. There's also cameras. There's security cameras everywhere. Those were two things that I really, really liked, and they come in handy, and it's very well lit. So if something were to happen, I know that my apartment complex can review security footage, and they will, and they have. So for me, I was like, that is like top priority. Also, just because it's gated, I know nowhere is ever fully safe, but to me that was important because I couldn't get in and out of my apartment. One thing I would consider or suggest you do is, if you are considering an apartment, to go there multiple times throughout the week and multiple times throughout the day. I could not do that because my apartment complex is gated and I couldn't get in. So the security gate, I mean, it works, but you literally cannot get in if you don't have either the code to know someone who can let you in, or you don't have the clicker to get in. But I would suggest, if your apartment complex is not gated, the one that you're interested in, go there on the weekends. Go there at night after the leasing office closes. My apartment's very quiet. I think I could hear, like, I mean, literally, it's quiet. And that's super important to me. I like to sleep. I don't want anybody banging music all night long. I don't want to hear nobody cussing and fussing all night long. Like, that's super important. Is there a courtesy officer on site? There is for me here. That's very important to me. Location, how far away is the hospital? How far away or how long would it take for the cops to get to your apartment complex? Super random to think about, but like I said, life happens, and you don't want to be out in the boonies where, let's say you fall, I don't know, you fall and break your ankle. If you're in the middle of nowhere and it takes the cops or an ambulance 45 minutes to get to you, you might not want to live there, or if you're pregnant and you plan on getting pregnant, or you have a husband or a family or whatever, if it takes 45 minutes to get to the hospital, you might not want to live in that apartment complex because you got to weigh the pros and cons and stuff. So location, convenience, laundry. Mine comes with a laundry washer dryer inside. If yours does not, inside of my apartment, each unit has its own. If yours does not, where's the laundry located? Is it on site? Do you have to go to the laundromat? If you have to go to a laundromat, or if you have to pay for your laundry, can you afford that? You're going to have to put in your budget. Things to consider. Renter's insurance is something that people don't always consider as well. You do have to have renter's insurance, whether you get it through your apartment complex or you get it through an outside insurance agent. I got mine through an outside insurance agent. I had a wonderful agent. I got great rates because my credit was so good. He slashed and dashed me a bunch of deals. Excuse me, y'all. And also, I paid it in full. So I paid the full year flat out. And because I paid it in full, I got a better discount too. And my coverage is more encompassing. Like, it gives me a ton of coverage. So it's not just liability. Like, I have a whole bunch of different scenarios that could happen that will still cover me under my renter's insurance. So that's really important because I showed him the policy that they were going to give me through my apartment complex that I had to pay for each month. And he was like, this is garbage. This covers your apartment complex, but it doesn't cover you. So their tails are covered, but you're going to be out here just hurt if something happens. So Get you some renter's insurance. It's a must. You have to have it. It's non-negotiable, but make sure you get a good rate and you get good coverage because that's really important. Also think about pets. I have a dog, but he's not here. He's at my parents' house. Is it an ongoing pet fee? Is it a one-time pet fee? What kind of pets are able to be here? Also, if you're afraid of animals, like there's a big dog that lives below me to the right, and there's a sweet little dog that lives above me to the right. But if you're afraid of dogs, you might not want to live in a complex where they have dogs, because I see dogs constantly. They run up to me, they're off the leash, I get kisses, I get hugs from these dogs. But if you're terrified of dogs, you're not going to want to live in my apartment. Also, ask if there's a specific building dedicated to pet owners, which is kind of random, but it's something to consider because, like, I mean, they're dogs or a cat, they have fleas. So if there is a specific building dedicated to those animals, that's something to consider versus if they can be all over the complex. Like, you might be living next door to a cat. My mom is terrified of cats. And if she lived next door to somebody with a cat, she would probably die, especially if the cat got out. I have literally opened my door and somebody's dog just came in my apartment. If I was afraid of dogs, I would have been dead right there on the floor, just dead. So consider that, like, that's something to consider. And that wasn't a bad thing. Like, the dog just happened, the owner didn't have it on his leash, they were going down the steps, I opened my door, the dog came right in, I got a bunch of puppy kisses, we played a little bit, I met my neighbor like above me. But if I hadn't been afraid of dogs, I would have been dead. Like, I would have gone to glory right then. So consider that. Also, do not burn bridges if you can help it. Listen, my parents, like, I was ready to move out. They were ready for me to move out. There was no beef, no issues, no drama, but it was time. Like, I had been in their house for like 6 years, okay? But I didn't leave on bad terms. Now, I understand everybody's situation is different, but if you can leave on good terms, because you never know. Once again, life will happen. If something happens, what is your fallback plan? Can you go back to mom and dad's house? Can you go back to granny's house? Can you go back to your sister's house if you can't pay your rent? Please do not leave whoever you're living with. Don't leave their house and be like, forget y'all, I'm done with y'all, I don't ever need you, you never did nothing for me. Honey, don't burn bridges. It's very important. Be humble because you never know. So have a fallback plan if something doesn't work out. Know how long your lease is. My lease agreement is 15 months, which is a super, super random amount of time, but it's 15 months. I am locked into this lease for 15 months. Whether I pay my rent, whether life happens, I'm locked in. And I'm expected to pay for 15 months. Know that. Okay, also, do not come out now. Okay, so I'm speaking to you like, not as a hypocrite, but I'm giving you both sides of the spectrum. If your apartment is furnished or if it's unfurnished, those are things you need to consider. And here's why. All right, so if your apartment's furnished, that takes a lot of the hassle out of your life, okay? Think about college apartments. I'm not sure other cities, they might have furnished apartments, but most apartments here, if it's not a college apartment, does not come furnished. Like, they just don't. So that's something to consider. Mattresses are expensive, y'all. Like, if you can't afford a bed or a mattress, but you're okay with sleeping on an air mattress for a few months, okay, then just know that. Couches are expensive. Now, I got lucky. My parents gifted me a couch. Like, they gave me this couch, but I was about to be like, we're gonna have to go to IKEA or somewhere because I'm not about to spend $600 on a couch. Like, a couch is important, but it's not like important, you know. I also got blessed because my parents gave me all of my bedroom furniture. I had already had furniture kind of saved up in storage too, and they gave me my mattress, my bed, and my box spring, and my dressers. Mattresses are so expensive, like, and I'm not like bougie because I totally would have lived on an air mattress if necessary, but you have to understand and recognize what are super important to you. If you have to have a couch, is it okay if you get a thrifted couch or a secondhand couch, or can somebody give you a couch? If you need a bed, like you're like, oh, I can't sleep on an air mattress, then you're gonna have to fork out some cash for a mattress and a box spring and a bed and some dressers and a nightstand. Like, just start easing into the furniture. Now, in undergrad, I had fully furnished apartments. I just brought my own bed and my mattress because I was tired of like sleeping on lumpy beds. But everything else came furnished. So, you know, table, chairs, couches, all of that came with the apartment. This one, I took my time, but I still bought a lot. So my couch was gifted to me, my bedroom set was gifted to me, but I did buy my TV stand. I already had the TV, rugs, decor, but pace yourself. Everything that I did was on a budget, and it was very cost effective, cost friendly, and time friendly. I did not come out here and just drop stacks because I'm like, ooh, no, my apartment has to be on fleek. Who's here? I'm here. Like, I have a couple people come over a few times here and there, but I'm not about to go broke decorating this thing when I live by myself. Like, I'm okay. I didn't have patio furniture forever. Like, I just got patio furniture not too long ago. I never even gone on my patio, but it was such a good deal. If I want to go out there, I can, but that wasn't like a necessity. What are your necessities? How much do they cost? Can you afford them? If you have to have a couch, can somebody give you a couch? Can you get a thrifted couch? Can you get a yard sale couch? Facebook Marketplace couch? Or if you want to buy a quality couch, do you have the money for it? These are things you have to consider. Okay, just take your time. Take your time decorating. Go to Goodwill. Go garage sailing. See if granny, auntie, uncle can give you stuff. Honey, I have so many dishes, silverware, rugs, comforters, sheets, towels. I did buy a lot myself too, but people gave me stuff, especially my first apartment when I was in undergrad. This time I was like, I want to, you know, get stuff on my own, but I still had a lot of stuff. I had a lot of dishware sets, cookware, utensils that I had been given years ago that I kept and brought to this apartment. So pace yourself. You don't have to come out and be on MTV Cribs in your first apartment. Like, you can take your time and really tailor it to make it what you want. All right, y'all, I feel like I've talked your ears off enough. So hopefully some of these tips and tricks and information has helped you in some capacity. Don't get discouraged. Just make sure you have your budget. Make sure you know what your money is doing, and make sure you take your time. I feel like renting an apartment is not just something you just go do. Like, it definitely requires some planning. Once again, I know everyone's situation is different, and I'm not speaking in terms of college students, student housing, or any other situation where you don't really have much of a choice to like sit down and plan. But I will tell you, college students, one thing. If you're listening to me, sometimes getting an apartment is a lot cheaper than staying in a dorm, but it can require a lot more upkeep. For example, if you're not going to go out here and cook, you might need to stay on campus if you have a meal plan. Or if your meal plan, if your university lets you have a meal plan off campus. Okay, so do your pros and cons. Don't let anybody tell you that you can't be cute in a dorm. I stayed on campus until my junior year. So my junior and senior year, I was off campus. But I didn't pay my rent. My parents paid my rent for my apartment my junior and senior year. I had to pay my utilities, but they paid my rent. There is nothing worse than being stressed out about grades, money, and housing. If you can avoid or prevent stressing yourself out more than college already is, keep your tail in that dorm. Sometimes dorms are more expensive, but you have to think about the cost and the benefit. Okay, I never had to worry about rent, ever, because my parents paid for it. There are people who are out here who are literally struggling just to pay rent. Don't be that person if you can help it. Put your pride aside, y'all. Pride will be your biggest downfall. Don't be proud. Be smart. I lived in my parents' house for 6 years. Paid my way through graduate school. Paid in full. When I walked across that stage, my tuition had already been paid. Like, I paid it. But I was not going to move out and be struggling to pay my tuition and my rent. I said, absolutely not. I will be 40 years old living in my mama's house. Not really. But I was like, I don't care what anyone says. I'm not going to stress myself out by trying to pay my tuition and my rent. It's not worth it. So anyway, be smart. Do your budget. Don't let the noise, don't let people talking get to you. Go for what you know and pray about it. If it doesn't feel right, don't do it. Pray about it. And pay your tithes, y'all. That's a whole other video. Pay your tithes. God will bless you, but you have to give him his 10%. He only asked for 10%. That's all he asked for. Give it to him, and give it to him gratefully and joyfully. Y'all, I run up to, when it's time for offering, I take off. I'm like, here you go, Lord, here you go. Pay your tithes, pray about it, and be great. Love you guys. Thank you so much for watching. If I talked your ear off, I'm so sorry, but I like to talk. I just want to help you guys. Any questions, leave them down below. Give me a like, a comment, be nice, and go out here and be great on a budget. Bye, y'all.